If you use hitting as punishment for your children, why? I've been hit once by my dad for kicking the dog really hard out of rage as a child. I'm not saying it's right, but I'd have done the same. Never hurt an animal since. This is one of those exceptions that proves the rules situations. Hitting children teaches them how awful it is to hit someone because you're bigger/stronger. In this instance, punishment perfectly fit the crime. Usually, not the case. So I will give an honest answer. I have spanked my 2 kids a grand total of 3 times. I'm 100% against spanking. But in a moment of tired, exhausted, frustrated single mom, toddler hell, I showed weakness. 2 of the times were when my toddler decided to bolt into danger. The other time I was trying to get my daughter's diaper on. She was screaming, crying, fighting me. It had been a long day and I just needed to get her diaper on before driving home. She kicked me so hard on the boob. I was still breastfeeding and it hurt so fucking bad. And I reacted by popping her on the bottom. Once again, not proud of myself. It was a moment of weakness. Here's the terrifying part. It worked. That actually freaked me out. It was like cheating. I can see why parents do it. It's a horrible way to get your child to do what you want. When I was a kid, I would randomly run off. It drove my parents mad, especially as my mom is disabled so can't move so fast. They tried everything to stop this behavior. Once I went to run into a road. I remember the car swerving a breath from my nose. My mom yanked me back and in an amalgamation of rage and terror she smacked my ass so hard I lost all sense of body and being. I never once bolted again after that. I barely remember it, and while my dad would smack me as a final warning, my mom didn't often. My personal perspective is I will do my best to never smack my child, but I imagine I'd rather smack them but than see them ran over. He doesn't hit them, but my friend makes his kids run laps in the backyard if they're being bad. This reminds of a punishment my friend had when we were teens. She was caught drinking and her parents made her move a pile of bricks from one side of the backyard to the other and back while hungover. 18 years later, and she still to this day hardly ever drinks, and never to the point of having a hangover. I, reluctantly, only spanked when one of my kids were injuring a sibling and wouldn't stop. It was probably less than 4 times between 2 kids. We were buddies again very soon after. Thanks for being one of the few comments that actually answers the question. Not a parent, but I was frequently spanked, and it was obvious that she did it because she was angry. Mum wasn't mature enough to regulate her own emotions and would spiral into a screaming whirlwind of hands and nails at the smallest provocation. She sometimes non-apologized afterwards. "I'm sorry, but you need to stop making me so mad." I didn't care for being hit, so I avoided it as often as possible by becoming an excellent liar. I was beaten as a child, for what my father deemed educational. Not a slap on the hand or a swipe at the back of the neck, mind you. And what I learned? The day my father died was the beginning of my life, and I'm still dealing with anxiety and social performance issues. I will never have kids at 40, because I don't know how to handle them and afraid I will respond with violence. Completely cut off my mother from my life since she was around at all time but never interfered. I don't think kids should be allowed to do anything without proper limits and discipline, but it's a thin line between education and abuse. I was parented like this. It started with mild spanking but at times could progress into hitting, kicking, throwing, etc. I didn't take beatings or consider it physical abuse, but it was definitely traumatic on a deeply emotional level. Of course, none of that was effective parenting, and it probably contributed to a significant amount of mental issues I struggle with as an adult, including a strained relationship with my parents. Unfortunately, I've inherited some of the anger and impulsiveness from my parent that did this to me, and I'm deeply afraid of how I'll treat my kids as a parent. I feel so fucked up from how I was raised that I wonder if it's morally acceptable for me to even have kids. If you're a parent that does this or thinks it's okay, please consider showing compassion and love to your child instead. Seek help for your anger issues or whatever is causing you to snap. Your kid might be a pain in the ass, but at the end of the day you're the adult, and the responsibility is on you to be an example for your kid. I was battered black and blue regularly as a kid. Hell, I am not saying I didn't deserve it, but it didn't stop me being naughty again either. So what does it really teach kids? Violence is acceptable? Now, as a parent myself, I have found many frustrating situations where the urge to lash out at the kid comes on. But I realized at some point that hitting a child comes from the frustration of the parent. People try to justify it, but ultimately it is a reflection on the adult, and shows emotional immaturity. There are many efficient ways of disciplining kids without striking them.